with her. And then I decided that I could probably get more jobs if I moved back to New York, and my teachers were kind of encouraging me to do that. So I came back up here. I didn't have a job, but I just started applying and like reaching out to friends who worked in design or for advertising agencies, and I think I got my first break like slightly above an intern, working at a studio where someone who also went to Georgia State was working, and then a couple months later I got my first like permalance gig, doing design for an advertising agency.
Mhm. And when did you work at Wired magazine? Because you worked at Wired, didn't you?
Yeah, I worked at Wired for like 3 years. It was I think 2009 to 2012. Yeah, so I was freelancing at an ad agency, and then they had to cut down staff. So then in the same building, Oxygen, the TV company, was there. So I freelanced there a little bit. I did a couple other small jobs, and then I just cold applied to like this Wired job because I didn't know when my job. Well, I had a job at the time where like I come in on Monday, and they'd say like on Friday, ask us if you can come back next week. Like I'm not really cut out for that much uncertainty. So I was like, I want something a little longer. So I applied to work at Wired, and then I ended up working there for 3 years.
And what did you do at Wired?
At Wired, I was a multimedia designer. So first I started out just doing stuff for web, so like banner ads or stuff to go on the website. And then they hold different events, like they have the Wired store or they have a sales conference. And then they started taking videos of those, and I was like, oh, I could make a recap video. So then I take the footage from the events, and then I mix that with some statistics that they want like to illustrate. And I mixed that with some animation and some photographs, and then I started doing these recap videos, which I had a lot of fun doing that because it's still like it's graphic design, it's also motion design, and it's also a little bit of filmmaking. I mean, it's like a sales video, but you can have fun with it. So I got into making more videos like that.
Very nice. And all this time, you still doing your own personal art and your own personal art projects? Or
yeah, and I would.
What?
Yeah, I would say I should back up because how I met you and my time in Atlanta. Like I was still doing my own art, and I would go to the Apache Cafe, and they had their Art Mondays. I don't know if they still do.
Yes,
but I would go there. Oh, awesome. Yeah, I would go there. Sometimes I would draw, and then I remember when I was talking to some people and like trying to show people my work, and I showed some of my work, and then he put me in a show, and I was just like super excited because it was like I'm in a real show, like nothing to do with school, and pretty excited to be in that and like to meet other artists in Atlanta. I met you and Yada and W and a couple other Michi, Kendall. So I was meeting a lot of people in the artist community, and everyone was pretty supportive, and it was just a nice atmosphere. Like I had a show at your shop, and that was awesome because I got to invite people and make invites and have people come in. I think I even curated a show at your shop too, so it was a nice community there. I volunteered a lot with iDrum, so I was just really enjoying the art scene there, the art and the poetry. And so in my day job I'd work in the library, I'd take a class, whatever, and then at night I could draw and like go out and meet other people, meet other artists, and have my work shown and seeing other people's work. So that really kind of sustained me while I was just like, because my day job wasn't that creative. It was nice to have that keep going.
Okay. And so when in New York, did you do any more shows, or did you try, or was it strictly focused on growing your graphic design and freelance career?
When I first moved back up, I think I was pretty nervous because New York's not cheap, and I had to make money. So I got a job, and then I tried to take on freelance projects as well. And then I started noticing, like, if I could just support myself with one job, then I don't have to take out so much freelance work, and then that also gives me more time to like focus on my work. So I started doing. There was a little touch and go when I wasn't doing my art that much, but then after things calmed down a little bit, I started doing more of my own work, and that was also really fulfilling because I love graphic design, but when you're doing your own work, you are the art director. No one's like, oh yeah, put this in. It's like, no, it's whatever you want to do. So,
right. And that's always like a balance that you want to somehow you want to work into your schedule, because I know with me, I get paid for graphic design, for web design, tattoos. I still do tattoos, and you get asked to do certain things, and you're like, "Yeah, cool. That sounds like a cool project," and they're paying you for it, so you do it. But and there's those moments where you're like, I just need to draw what I want to draw right now. And that's what I post on my Instagram all the time. That's the stuff that I draw. None of my client stuff do I post. I post the stuff that I like, that I enjoy, and I have to do it all the time because I gotta get it out. I have to feel comfortable, and so it may not lead to nothing. It's not gonna necessarily make money. It's just art. It's just drawing. It's just stuff I like. So you kind of have to put that in there somehow, little by little.
Definitely, yeah. I think it gives you more energy and more excitement about life in general. Like if you're just doing what other people are telling you all the time, like certain parts of your brain, your creativity and your soul start to just dwindle. So you have to keep doing things that you're interested in and keep finding out. And when I take a break from it, I'm like, I don't, something seems like something's missing. But then if I'm doing something where I am creative, like whether it be drawing or like making a costume or dance, like I start to feel more of like myself coming out, and it's really nice, and I love it.
And so tell us a bit about what you're working on now. Where do you work, or is that what do you do for your personal project? Because I think you got a project going on. I saw you post a picture of your mom. So tell us a little bit about that. The project I'm working on is called Black Enuf. It's a animated documemoir exploring the Black identity, and it's basically taking stories of my life and my family and trying to figure out like what it means to be Black, or what it means for me to be Black, what it means for my mom to be Black. So it's kind of like a bigger question that I've kind of been thinking about my whole life. And I was fortunate enough, my great-grandmother wrote her autobiography, and I never really paid attention to it as a kid because I was just not interested in history so much. But then I had a chance, and I sat down and I read it, and there's a lot of really interesting stories in there. And I remember in 1985, this white woman came to our family reunion, and it turns out that she was part of our family, but part of my family back in the 1800s, decided they didn't want to be Black anymore, so they just passed for white and stopped talking to us. And she did research and figured out that she lived in the same town where other relatives were there, but she didn't know them because her family didn't want her to know that she had Black ancestry. So once she came through the family reunion, growing up, it was just oh yeah, that's your cousin Delilah, and I'm oh okay, I didn't think about it. And then getting older and started thinking about race relations and identity, I was that's actually a really interesting story. So I flew out to Seattle and I interviewed her, and then I animated the interview using rotoscoping. So a way to tell the story of her family and my family and passing all of that through film. I'd always liked telling stories through art, but then once I started thinking about using drawing and related to film and animation, I felt like I could tell even more stories that way. So I made that first short animated film. And then at first I was I'm going to do my whole family. It's going to be this gigantic thing. And I was okay, maybe I need to break it up. It's a lot of work. I did that rotoscoping film. I did 900 drawings, and I was my hands can fall off. I don't know. So I was next project, no rotoscoping.
But so I interviewed my family, my mom, my dad, my brothers, and some people I went to high school with. And then I decided for, like, the parts of my story that are in the past, like, it's best to show it through animation because, like, watching someone talk is, you know, somewhat interesting, but animation's just like this magic. You can have anything happen. So I decided I could mix my art, my hand drawing stuff, my animation skills, and all of the family storytelling all in one. So that's my big project I've been working on for a couple of years now, but going to have a rough draft by the end of the year. It's going to happen.
Right. So,
but,
are you working with a team? Is this by yourself? How did you get this going? I mean, by yourself and you still have a regular job, right?
Yeah, I still have a regular job. So my regular job, I do graphic design for television now. So I work for Al Jazeera America doing news graphics. So it's also fun, and I get to learn more, like, in After Effects and Cinema 4D, and it's like a quick turnaround job, which is like, you know, they're like they order something at 2:00, they need it at 6:00, so it's kind of like fast paced.
Wow.
I mean, I know, you know, working in design, there can be so much back and forth, which can lead to a nice product at the end, but, like, when I can get it in, get it out, I'm like, oh, this is nice. Like, you know, quick. So, yeah, I work my day job, and then when I decided I wanted to make this project, since I hadn't made a film before, I took a couple film classes at SVA in documentary filmmaking. And so they started talking to us about story structure and, like, how to interview people and different ways to tell a story, like through an interview, through this verite, like taping what's happening, through pictures, through news clips, like several different ways to tell a story. So I started working on it on my own, and then, like, I had an art crit group that I was part of for a while, so I'd show them little things. And then just this past year, I joined Diverse Filmmakers Alliance. So it's made up of a diverse group of people, very different racial and religious backgrounds, and we meet once a week to, like, critique each other's projects. So since a lot of this is on my own, it's really nice to have someone else, like, paying attention to it and, like, kind of keep you on your toes when, like, someone else is also interested in your project. So that's been really good, and I've also been exposed to then, like, 15 other filmmakers making very interesting work. So we kind of support each other in that way.
And that makes the whole process easier to handle and figure out as you go along, right?
Yeah.
It's good to have a support group.
I mean, I was trying to do it on my own, which, like, I mean, I'm doing the majority of the actual work that you'll see on the screen on my own, but, like, I went back to Kansas City in April to retape the interviews because I don't have any background in, like, using a camera for film. Well, not much background in that, or, like, lighting or audio, so I hired a team in Kansas City to do that part of it. And then a lot of the parts that take place in the past, I had some friends and then a couple actor friends do voiceovers for it. So we went to a studio and we recorded the voiceovers for that. And there's a sound engineer also working on that. So now I'm just kind of, like, animating all of the voiceover parts that I wrote down and working with my film critique group and other people that I know, like, getting feedback on, like, how the pacing's working, how the editing's going. But, you know, I have a lot of questions that, like, people in that group can answer. I'm like, well, you know, what does an editor do? What does a producer do? Like, how do you get this thing done? Like, who composes music? So I've been reaching out and getting some information on that. So I'm definitely learning a lot in the process.
Nice. I know that I had this idea of a podcast and video interviews with artists. And so when I was doing art shows in 2008, that's when I started doing the mono art shows. I was filming interviews, and but I didn't know what I was doing. I was just doing it. You know, I wanted to somehow publish this stuff, and But you know, I did some interviews